the starting range typically is 20 to 30. But when you become a VA, you're not starting over, you're just switching lanes. But you can easily, I would say within 3 to 6 months, easily be bringing in 1,000 to 2,000 a month, working sub 20 hours a week.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Side Hustle Hero, the show that inspires action and helps you to grow your side hustle into a thriving income stream. I'm your host, Joan Posivy. Today, we drill down on a low barrier to entry side hustle that has seen tremendous growth over the past 5 years, becoming a virtual assistant. Laura Nicole Jennings, a VA herself, has also coached nearly 1,000 people into VA work, and she shares exactly how to get started, where and how to find clients, and which tasks are the most in demand today. We also cover the surprising impact that AI has not had on this industry, how to build in recurring compensation reviews, and who pays for what when it comes to tools and subscriptions. Now here's my conversation with the founder of Superstar Assistant Academy, Laura Nicole Jennings. Well, welcome, Laura.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Well, a lot of people listening may have a strong skill set, perhaps in administration, communication, or even organization, but they may not recognize how they can translate that into real income. For someone considering VA work as a side hustle, where's the best place to start? What would you recommend as their step one?
So actually, their step one, I think, is to sit down and list out all of their skills that they have and things they do on a daily basis. I love to have people who come to me and are interested in this grab a sheet of paper
Okay.
and split it in half and write work on one side and life on the other and go through and just write down what all of your responsibilities are, right? Because there's so many things that we do, whether it's at work or just managing a home and managing your life in general, right? All of
Yeah.
your appointments, if you're a parent and you have kids, all of the scheduling and everything that goes with that, our budgeting, our grocery orders, right? Plus anything you do at work, even if you don't work in a traditional administrative role,
Okay.
still do things that are administrative in nature. And so really it's just the first point for a lot of people because a lot of people come to me and their initial thought is that I'm not actually qualified
Sure.
to be a virtual assistant,
Yep.
which is not true, but I just have to help them see that they actually are. So grabbing that sheet of paper, splitting it down the middle, work, home, all of your responsibilities, like what things wouldn't be getting done unless you were the one doing them, right? Because there's a good chance that 75% of those things are actually tasks that you could also be doing for a business owner, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just
Yep.
doing them. You're answering emails, but instead of emailing the doctor or your kid's school, you're answering questions that are coming in from a potential customer to a business owner. And so it really illuminates for people.
Yeah. What are some like a common thing that people miss that might be a transferable skill from the workplace that they don't recognize it until you point it out to them?
Yeah, it's a lot of people tend to think when they think of becoming a VA, they think of the hard skills. They think I need to know programs or software or be tech savvy and having a computer proficiency obviously is important because you're
Yes.
working online. But what actually is really incredibly important are your soft skills and the way that you handle people, the way that you communicate, if you're detail oriented and organized and proactive, if you're a critical thinker, right? If you're the person at work, I always say, if you're the person at work that you're in a meeting and somebody has a question and everybody kind of looks at you, like they're going to have the answer, right? Like,
Yeah.
then that tells me that you have the personality and like the intrinsic character traits that will make you really successful as a virtual assistant. Because in reality, when small business owners are looking to bring in a VA, they're looking maybe 30% at your hard skills and then 70% at your soft skills. But a lot of people tend to think that it's the opposite ratio.
Yes, I so agree with that. In most, or if not all, of my management seminars, I would ask the existing managers in the audience, I would say, think of your rock star employee. They're like the real superstar, like you said, the one that everybody turns to. And what are the top 3 reasons why you put them in that category, and write them down. And
Mhm.
99.9% of the stuff they write down is all the soft skills, because
100%.
we can so easily train for the hard skills. It's the soft skills, man. If you bring that to the table, that's huge. And oftentimes those people are very teachable. And so they
Mhm.
are willing to learn and pick up new skills and
Exactly. That's
that
what I
type of
remind
thing.
people of all the time. Like, you don't have to have this massive resume of like, I can do this software. And this. It's like, as long as you're teachable, you're coachable, and you're a quick learner, because small business owners are going to want to teach you their systems and their processes anyway. So they don't need you to have this like preset list of things that you know.
Yeah.
But without the soft skill of being a quick learner and paying attention to detail, right? Like, you're not going to be able to pick those up as well.
Mhm. How does the new VA feature that or highlight that?
A lot of it honestly comes across just in your communication.
Okay.
One thing that I teach the people who I coach to become virtual assistants is that, number one, the method that I teach them does not involve like any cold pitching or just like showing up to somebody. I teach them to really make connections and network with the types of clients that they want to be supporting, who run businesses that they actually have a passion for, and an interest in. And so a way to showcase that, I teach them when they do pitch a potential client to do it in a solution oriented way. So they're not saying, hey, how can I help you? What do you need help with in your business? Right? They're able to come in and say, hey, from our conversation, from what I've seen on social media, knowing the type of business you run, here's 3 ways that I feel really confident I could help you.
Mm.
And then laying those out, right? And so
Okay.
that's showing the business owner right from the bat, hey, you're thinking ahead, you're being proactive, you're coming up with solutions. Like, I'm not going to have to follow up with you a million gajillion times, because clearly you have that self drive, right? So
Yes.
having that communication with potential clients, even just as you're getting to know them and networking, gives you that time to really allow that to shine through.
I've noticed that too in hiring for help with video editing, podcast
Mhm.
editing. The way people interact with me says a whole lot if I know that, okay, they're going to be responsible and I can trust them with these things. Assuming that these, for example, 5 potential people all have those hard skills,
Right.
then obviously I'm going to choose the one that I know I can count on. I know that based on this person's interaction with me already through email, perhaps even a Zoom call, I know that I can count on them, that they're not going to drop the
Right.
ball. Yeah, that's huge.
Absolutely.
You started to answer this because I wanted to ask you if you could give us some tips on how the best ways a new VA could market themselves to land that
Mhm.
first paying client. So in developing that relationship, I trust a lot of the people that you're working with, they're going to be working, well, it's all remote. And so
Mhm.
how are they connecting? LinkedIn, or what's your
Yeah,
guidance
so
there?
through social platforms, but I take a bit of a different approach, I think, than a lot of coaches out there.
Okay.
I'm not one who believes that like you have to have a business Instagram and you have to be, really forward facing marketing yourself. I believe that you can be proactively reaching out to those potential clients that are your ideal client. I'm not a huge fan. Like, there's freelancing sites like Fiverr, Upwork, there's LinkedIn, Indeed. I would rather you spend your time on Instagram, on Threads, on Facebook, seeking out the types of businesses you want to work with, following them, getting on their email list, because usually when small business owners are ready to hire, those are the first 2 places they're sharing, right? Because they want to share to people who are already interested in their business. But then engaging with their content on Instagram, replying to their stories because it goes directly to their DMs, right? And then you can elaborate. You can send voice notes now on Instagram.
Yes.
That's talking about being able to show your personality, how y'all can communicate effectively. Those voice notes are really important. So I always tell people, I would rather see you, if you have 30 minutes in a day, I would rather you spend that on Instagram, on Threads, getting into Facebook groups that are specific to your niche, not the ones that are just like, I need a virtual assistant and it's a 150,000 members, because it's mostly scam and like bot posts, it's not real business owners.
Yes.
So being in local business or local entrepreneur Facebook groups, or ones that are specific to the niche and industry you want to be supporting business owners in, spending your time there
Mhm.
rather than, scrolling the job boards on Fiverr and Upwork, because those connections are going to create much better client relationships when you sign
Yes.
up.
And of course, all those platforms that you mentioned, like Fiverr, like Upwork, they're taking a piece. So you're
Yeah, they're
getting
taking a
giving them
piece, and
yeah.
it's not a great risk to reward ratio in my mind, because there are a lot of posts that are just not legit. And so when the legit ones pop up, they're getting flooded with people who are showing interest, right? So you have this massive competition for limited numbers of roles. And it's just, I think, and it's an energy suck, right? Because
Right.
you're just scrolling and scrolling compared to actually getting to have conversations with
Yes.
people
Developing that
that,
relationship.
yeah, that fulfill you and excite you. And it's just a totally different experience of looking for clients.
You mentioned ones posts that aren't legit. What are those then? What do you mean by that?
Like the scammy, there's a lot of scam posts and bot posts where it'll say like, looking to hire, we need 25 people to do PDF transcription. And there's those red flags, right? I always tell people to just trust your gut.
Yes.
Same as we do when we get that text message and we're like, I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
about that, right? There's so many, unfortunately, but it is
Got it.
2025. No,
Oh,
there's
okay.
like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And then they message you and they're like, hey, send me 25 minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
this is
Okay.
not.
Yeah. Got it.
So
Got it.
unfortunately, there's a lot of those out there.
You did mention getting on people's newsletters
Yeah.
lists, your ideal clients. I
Mhm.
think that's a fabulous idea because you're starting to get a better understanding of the culture and the message behind that brand. Uh,
Absolutely.
so I love that suggestion. When you mention networking and connecting with the businesses, do you ever recommend the person going into their own community physically? I'm thinking of Board of Trades, Chamber of Commerce, that type of thing.
Yeah, you absolutely can. So in the virtual assistant space, right, it is more common to support online business owners just because there's literally hundreds of thousands of them.
Yeah.
But you, so, right, so you have this massive pool, but you can absolutely support local businesses as well. I have a lot of women who I have coached who they're just so passionate about local business that they've decided to narrow down into that space. You can also do a combo, right? You could support somebody virtually who lives in a different state or a different country and also pour into your local community, especially if you're in not even like massive cities, but just like more of a metropolitan area. There tend to be entrepreneur like get-togethers,
Yes.
and things that you can show up in those spaces and network locally as well. I usually just encourage people to also be open to the online arena because it widens your options so much more.
But I
Yeah.
could see in that smaller market, not even a smaller market, but I could see the advantage of being able to meet those small business owners one on one.
Mhm.
And that business owner may even think that hiring a VA is too, I don't know, if you're online, you really don't know the person, but here you get that face to
Yeah.
face connection. That would be really invaluable.
Yeah.
And that person, the new VA, has the advantage of being able to know the concerns of that audience. Maybe they don't have excessive cash flow and they could position themselves in such a way as, no, this is going to save you money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
very cool. How did you land your first non-family, non-friend, real paying VA client?
Yeah, it was through a Facebook group. I had two part-time, very part-time clients initially because I was 5 months postpartum and I was a full-time college professor. I was looking for the little bit of extra income because babies are expensive. We were looking for the extra cash flow. One of them was a connection from somebody in my personal network. So not working with them directly, but a connection, which is also a way that I encourage people, especially when starting, because you never know who might know. That was a
Yes.
lot of no's right there, but you get the gist. I always say there's that 6 degrees of separation. There's that ripple effect. I have
Mhm.
women, men I talk to all the time tell me like, I don't know any business owners. I don't have a network. And I'm like, do you know other humans? Yes, you have a network, right? Like you have a
Yep.
network. It's actually pretty common that you don't work with somebody who's in your exact circle. But once they all know about what you're doing, and then they're like, oh, my friend's fiance just started this business. I'm sure he needs help, right? Like you never know what connection will come from it. So one of my first clients was from one of those connections.
Okay.
And the other one was a woman who I was in Colorado at the time. She was actually in Toronto, Canada, in a small business owner Facebook group that I had gotten in. And she had posted about needing some help with her honey book and like following up on invoicing with her clients. And I messaged her and we chatted and decided to work together.
Awesome. And how long did you do it as a side hustle?
It was a side hustle for probably 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
And then it kind of accidentally turned into more than a side hustle. I wasn't intending for it to, but I got in talks with somebody. I was following my own method, right, of finding those people I'd love to work with, following them on Instagram. And someone who I'd followed posted on their stories that they were looking for an assistant that
Whoa.
also happened to be local. We were near Denver at the time, and they happened to be local. So we were able to meet up and have lunch and talk through things. The work was done virtually. We didn't really meet up a whole lot for work, but it was
Yes.
nice to meet in person. And that client ended up being a $4,000 per month contract. And
Oh
so
man, you must have been thrilled.
I was really thrilled, but I'm also very type A and I'm very logical. So I did not leave teaching for another 2 semesters. So I guess technically it was still a side hustle, even though it was
Right.
as much as my college professor salary. Yeah. And then I doubled my college professor salary in just over a year. And so then I really felt confident. I could have left earlier. I was just scared that things were going to fall apart, you know?
Sure. Yep.
And then I had tripled my college professor salary in a little over 2 years. So I was making well into the 6 figures with just 2 clients as a virtual assistant.
Really? Wow.
Mhm. It still sounds wild when I say it out loud.
So, yeah, there's pros and cons to that because multiple clients protect you more from one of those clients leaving for whatever reason versus one or two or three clients being more manageable, I guess. So
Yeah.
there's probably a sweet spot in there somewhere.
There is. I have people asking me that all the time, how many clients should I work with? And number one, it's so personal. I think people sometimes maybe want to shake me when they ask me questions because my answer is usually there's not a specific answer.
Yeah.
Because the beauty of virtual assistants is that you can personalize it however you want it, however many hours you want to work, however many clients you want to, like, you have full control, which is an amazing benefit.
Yes.
But I can't really give people like a number like they typically want to hear.
Yeah.
But what I will say is from my experience and from coaching almost 1,000 people to become VAs, I would never recommend carrying more than 5 clients at a time.
Okay.
Because it just becomes unmanageable, right? You're
Yep.
not able to give 100% to anybody. So if you're reaching a point, maybe you're at your 3rd client and you're like, man, I just still really want to bring in a little extra. Instead of trying to go sign 2 more clients, maybe reassess the clients you have. Maybe talk to them and see, is there more responsibility you could take on? Is it time for a conversation about your rates? Have y'all been on the same rates for 6 months? Is it time to
Yes.
revisit that, and have a conversation? But yeah, I say the sweet spot is usually 3 if you're looking for this to be like a pretty substantial side hustle. If you're wanting to work 5 or 10 hours a week to bring in, $700 to $1,500 a month, then you could probably do that with just 1 client too.
Mhm. Yeah. I love that idea of upselling yourself like that
Mhm.
because you've already developed the relationship with that client. They've seen your work. Obviously, they're happy with it. And
Mhm.
so to be able to take a very proactive role and say, just so that you're aware, I could also take this off your plate. I can help in this way. And as the employer in this scenario, that would be an easy yes for me. I love that.
Absolutely. And it
Yeah.
all stems back to what I had talked about earlier, that's part of the reason I teach people to really figure out what type of client they want to work with and what kind of business they want to support, because
Right.
the ultimate goal, even if this is a side hustle and you want it to stay a side hustle forever, the goal still is to sign clients that you can stay with and grow with, right?
Yes.
'Cause that's how you create the steadiness. It's not that unsteady, oh, 1 month it's this, 1 month it's this. And so even if you're like, I never want to work more than 20 hours a week, I just want some extra cash coming in, we still want to be finding those clients that we really align with so that we can get in with them and then we just stay with them. It's not like a month to month thing. It's like, hey, this is indefinite. I had clients I've worked with for over 3 years, and now I have my own VA for my coaching business. She's been with me for 2.5 years.
Nice.
There's no end in sight, And so
Yes.
then you get that stability, but you also can increase your responsibilities when you're looking to increase your income as well.
Well, speaking of that stability, what do you recommend in terms of how a VA should set up that relationship with the client? Is it by the hour? Is it on a retainer? Is it a contract for a year? How does that work?
Yeah, so there's different options for sure. You can
Okay.
do hourly, you can sell bundles of hours. You can also do service packages where it's more based on the deliverables and less tied to the specific amount of time it takes you to do those services. I always recommend starting at the hourly, specifically really to protect you actually as the virtual assistant, because if you are new to this or you're brand new to a new client, you don't actually really know how long things are going to take you to do. And so it's way too easy to undersell yourself, right? And then all of a sudden you're actually making 15 an hour instead of 25 an hour because something took you longer than you thought.
Right.
So you can do just the hourly flat rate, or it's really common now to sell bundles of hours. So say the client purchases 30 hours from you, they pay that up front essentially to retain those 30 hours for the next 30 days. But there's different contract terms that you can do as well. It's pretty common when starting with a new client to do like a 30-day trial period. Doesn't mean you're discounting your rates. It just means that y'all are saying, hey, let's give this a go, working
Yes.
together for 30 days, knowing that we're going to have a conversation at the end of those 30 days about if we're a fit. And then from there, I recommend doing either like a 3-month contract or a 6-month contract. But again, in the scenario where you are finding those aligned clients, once you get through those couple of first terms and y'all are like, okay, yeah, like we're good to go, it's also really common to just kind of go to a rolling. Like it just is there, right?
Yes.
And you'll have it written in the contract how much time either of you would have to give if you wanted to separate
Okay.
and stop working together.
Mhm.
But it becomes less of like, hey, we're on a 3-month contract term, we're on a 6-month, we're on an annual. And it's just kind of like, hey, we both agree that we're going to work together until we don't.
Right.
And then you don't have to have all of that consistent, updating to your terms and stuff.
What would you say to someone who's worried that the market is just too crowded to get into
It's
at this
not.
point, that they've kind of missed the boat?
Not even close.
No?
There's literally hundreds of thousands, especially of online business owners, and more people starting online businesses every freaking day. And so, yeah, there are virtual assistants, right? There's definitely more VAs now than there were 5 years ago. It's more common, but it's like the amount of need eclipses the amount of support that's available out there.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's ever growing and it's definitely not oversaturated.
Okay. So another element of this is, well, let's talk about the intrusion of AI and how that's changed the landscape for VAs. I'm curious what types of tasks that you've seen be replaced, and maybe some that have surfaced or been created because of the introduction of AI.
Yeah, to be honest, in my experience and through what I've seen with my clients, the people that I coach to become VAs as well, there really has not been much that's replaced because AI it's never going to have that human component, right? It's never going to have like that touch that just having somebody who understands you as a person when you're their client plus your business, it's just not possible. And when people bring a VA into their business, it's because they want somebody who really understands them and their business and their mission and all of their goals.
You're
So
you're speaking to the power of that soft skills again.
yes, oh, 1,000,000%, 1,000,000%. So I haven't seen it replace any skill or any like services or things that someone would be having a VA do, but it is supplementing what VAs are doing. And honestly, it's just making the VAs more efficient if you're using the software in the correct way.
I could see that. It's instead of the client using AI to draft to emails or correspondence. Now the VA is doing that and using that tool.
Exactly.
Sure.
And there's so many ways that you can feed in to AI. Obviously, this could be like an entire discussion in and of itself,
Mhm.
but there's so many ways. Like I love to use it and I have my VA use it. I personally don't really use it with my clients because of the things I do for them. It's just not really applicable because I still work with clients as well as a virtual assistant. But like my VA who works with me for my coaching business, she uses it a lot to help with email concepts. Or if we want to write like a storytelling email, we input this whole storytelling framework
Yes.
into our chat bot. Who knows my mission? Who knows my ideal client? Who knows my voice and my brand and all the things? And so she can put our idea and what message we want to get across. But instead of her spending 45 minutes writing an email,
Yes.
she can put that stuff in quickly, get it back. She always edits, right? Because it always needs editing and that
Yes.
human touch to make it sound like us truly. But she can get that email cranked out in 15 minutes instead of 45 minutes or an hour, right? And so her life actually just got easier as my VA
Yes.
instead of me saying, oh, I'll just have AI do it.
Yeah, I've had some of those funny moments where AI spits something out and I'm like, I would never say that.
Literally.
Yeah.
I named my chatbot Lola, and there's times that I'll just message her back and I'm like, Lola, are you for real? Like, where did this even come?
Right.
Doesn't even, and she was like, oh, sorry. I'm like, yeah, let's try that again. Because this was, and that's a great example of why people are really afraid that AI is going to take the jobs of virtual assistants, but that's exactly why it's not. Because it always needs editing, it always needs proofing, it always needs some polishing from a person. And so that VA is always going to be needed there, even if AI is being implemented.
And it's shocking to me, Laura, when people don't proofread stuff. And then you and I
So
read it
obvious.
online and I'm like, oh my God. And this is a major company. How did
Mhm.
this get out? But
Yeah.
at any rate,
Mhm.
maybe
They need to hire a VA.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah. Well, this is a somewhat related question. What kinds of tasks are most in demand right now for VAs?
Really, just general admin tasks are always in demand because every type of small business, regardless of what industry they're in, whether they're service-based, product-based, doesn't matter. They have admin that needs to be taken care of, right? They have emails that need to be answered. They have reports that need to be run. They have a calendar that needs to be managed. If they are an online business, so many of them nowadays have online communities, right? Like Facebook groups or Discord or Telegram. Those communities need managing. They need
Right.
approval. They need to
Yeah.
approve people's posts. People need help scheduling out content on social media. A lot of people kind of mix in their brain VAs and social media managers. They're not the same thing because social media managers focus more on like strategy and growth and content creation. But as a VA, there's a lot you can offer to support somebody in their social media, actually posting for them, scheduling, replying to their DMs, similar to how you would a customer service email inbox, because there's so many FAQs that come through in the DMs that you could answer.
Yes.
So there's a lot, but truly, and I think that's one thing too, people think like, oh, that sounds too basic, right? Like, who's really going to want to pay? Like, every business owner wants to pay you to answer their emails. They didn't get in business to answer emails.
Yeah.
Like,
I was going to get into the earnings in a moment. How much would a company be paying someone to answer their emails?
so if let's say you're doing really basic general admin, you're doing calendar management, email management, you're easily charging 20 to 25 an hour.
Okay. And how much could someone then realistically earn in their first, we'll say 3 to 6 months if they're doing this part-time?
It depends how many hours you're working truly. I have actually have a woman who just started in my program, and about 7 days in, she signed her first client of 10 hours a week. And she was charging 20 or 25 an hour. So that right there, 10 hours a week, she's bringing in $1,000 a month pretty immediately, right? But again, there's a lot of variables. The starting range typically is 20 to 30. But one thing I always like to say is that when you become a VA, you're not starting over, you're just switching lanes. So it partially depends on the services you're offering, but it also depends just how much experience you're bringing to the table. So if you're someone who's been an executive assistant for 25 years, you're not going to be charging $20 an hour to start, right?
Yeah.
Because all of that experience doesn't just disappear, but you can easily, I would say within 3 to 6 months, easily be bringing in 1 to 2,000 a month, working sub 20 hours a week.
So a true side hustle.
Mhm.
So what kind of runway should the new VA give themselves from that point where they're starting to reach out for potential clients until they could realistically expect to be landing a client? Again, I know it's going to depend
Yeah.
on the personal
Yeah. And
circumstances.
it depends on how aggressively you're networking, and how much you're really getting out there. But I see so many people find success of signing their first client within 4 to 6 weeks. But that's because there's a setup time, right? You have to decide your services, you have to decide your rates, you have to create a resume or a website or some type of
Yes.
professional thing to present to
Hmm.
clients.
Hmm.
And so, especially in the framework that I teach, I say that you can build all of that foundation up, be
Yes.
networking and ready to sign a client within 28 days if you're intentional. And I've seen people do it a heck of a lot faster because they're like, no, 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 this is happening now. And they
Right.
go through and they make all of those decisions in a weekend, right?
Yes.
Like they go all in. So it does depend on, as always, your gusto and how quickly you want that timeline to be. But a realistic timeline is to be signing a client within about 4 to 6 weeks.
Nice. What's the biggest challenge typically faced by a VA? Maybe two scenarios. One, getting started and launching, and then secondly, in that relationship with the client.
So when starting out, the number one thing that actually gets in the way is mindset. It
Right.
has nothing to do with your skills or networking. It's all mindset. We love to psych ourselves out. We love to self-sabotage. Imposter syndrome
Yeah.
is real and it's a beast. And it happens. I can't tell you how many conversations I have where it's literally just me saying, like, you can do this. Like, they know it logically, right? But our logical brain doesn't kick in these scenarios. And
Yes.
so when you're first starting, that truly is the biggest obstacle.
Hmm.
And it's what stops so many people. I teach all the time. Like I tell the people I coach all the time, I want you to go out and get rejected by as many people as you possibly can. And people listening might be like, that's the worst advice I've
Wait
ever
a
heard.
second. I'm paying you to tell me that, right?
Why do you want me to go get rejected? Because you can't get a yes unless you're asking, right? Like giving people the opportunity. I want you to give somebody else the opportunity to reject you instead of you rejecting yourself.
Mm,
Because I see it so much every single day that people are rejecting themselves and deciding for a potential client that they're going to say no without giving them a chance to say no. If you were to pitch to a potential client and they say no, what's different about your day? Honestly, nothing's different. But what if you pitch that potential client and they say yes? Now things are different. And
yeah.
so our ego gets in the way. We don't like to be rejected. We don't like the idea that we could possibly fail. But literally, the only way to fail is to quit. The only way to fail is to not start. And so give people the chance to reject you because that also means they have the chance to say yes to you.
Yes. And as you're coaching someone too, you can tell when they've moved into that procrastination mode that's being
Mhm.
driven by self-doubt. Well,
Yes,
Laura, I really wanted to get this done this week, but I couldn't because whatever, and then an excuse.
100%.
Yeah.
Or it often also masks as focusing on things that they've convinced themselves are really important that
Yes.
actually are not important, but they
Hmm.
really want to come up with this clever business name. And so they feel like they can't actually share their resume or their website until they come up with it. And it's like, dude, no one is signing you because of your clever business name. They
Yes.
don't actually care, right? But again, our ego is like, ooh, if I latch on to this one thing, that
Hmm.
is so important, it has to be done, then it's keeping you safe because you're not putting yourself out there. So a
Yes.
lot of times it masks as either, oh, life was lifing, or it's just like, hey, can we redial here on what's actually important? Because that's a cool bonus, but it's not actually what's going to make someone work with you.
Hmm. Absolutely. And how about the biggest challenge for the VA while they are working with that client?
It's definitely, again, kind of just dependent on your relationship. I think as you grow with clients, just being really aware of your workload and your responsibility as it can adjust. From my experience, both as a VA and on the client side of it, clients tend to be really in tune with like, okay, I just added a bunch more to my VA's plate. Let's reassess her rates and or their rate and what I'm paying. But sometimes it just kind of slips under the radar because you're just like, oh, hey, let's do this. And hey, let's do this.
Yes.
And then it can be easy a month later where you're like, whoa, okay, I'm actually doing a lot more, or suddenly I'm doing things that carry a lot more weight and more responsibility, or maybe I've taken on a new task that I'm super excited to do, but it's the task that has a direct ROI for the client. And so we need to reassess the compensation that goes with that. So one thing that I always encourage people to do is in their contracts to have it written in a certain time frame, typically every 4 to 6 months, that you both know you're going to have a rate and responsibility conversation.
Nice.
Because it avoids that awkwardness, right? Of feeling it's easy if you don't have that on the radar to start feeling resentful of like, man, I'm doing all this stuff and I've added so much, but I'm still only getting paid X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
It typically, again, in my experience, the client's not doing it intentionally. They probably are just unaware and haven't really like sat down to analyze what you're doing. And so having those conversations built in, it's beneficial to both of you. And it gives you a chance to kind of recalibrate and say, okay, what are your responsibilities right now? What are you doing? Are you happy with them? Do you have more bandwidth? Do you want to take on more? Get your responsibilities really hammered out. And then the back half of that conversation is, okay, is your current compensation in line with those? Or do we need to make that adjustment? And so that's the thing I have noticed comes up the most in the ongoing working relationship, but having those conversations scheduled keeps it in line.
You're really setting up the expectation in the beginning that at this point in time, let's just call it 60 days, 90 days, we're going to have this review, like you said, for the benefit of both. So as if I was in the VA position and I know that we're going to do that review in 60 days and I'm at the, I don't know, 45, 50 day mark. And I'm thinking, you know what, I'm really doing a little bit too much here. You know what, that's okay. A week and a half from now, we're going to have this conversation.
Right.
And when you set up that expectation, almost like reminds me of delegating. When I delegate to someone, I set up that expectation of how we're going to check in and when, so you don't feel like you're checking up on this person. That is the expectation. We will be talking about this. So it's applying that to that VA scenario.
Yeah.
Well, is there something about the role of a VA, good or bad, that I haven't asked you yet that would be really helpful for our listeners to know?
So one thing that really always stands out to me, obviously making the money is good, right? Like that's the reason we start a side hustle, is because we want the extra cash coming in. But the really cool thing about VA work specifically is how insanely flexible it is. That you truly, I say that you can build this up, you can build this income in the nooks of your day. So if you're incredibly busy, if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're someone who has a 9 to 5, you can still do this because the actual tasks that you do for clients as a VA, checking that email, approving people into a Facebook group, each individual task only really takes 5 to 10, maybe 15 minutes. And even if you have bigger projects that the whole project might take a couple hours, you can break it down into smaller chunks of time. And so you truly can. I can't tell you how much work I get done on my phone when I get to school pickup a little bit early, right? I'm just like, oh, I got 10 minutes before I go in. Instead of scrolling Instagram or TikTok mindlessly, let me pop into my client's email and knock that out. It's so flexible in that way, coupled with the fact that clients don't care when you work. They don't care. I'm a night owl. I do a vast majority of my client work between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. In 5 years, I have never had a client be like, hey, Laura, I really need that to be 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., please. Like, as long as your work is done by the deadline, and it's done well, they don't care what of the 24 hours you use to get it done. So the combo of being able to break it into small chunks and also do it literally any hour of the day makes it so freaking flexible that you can fit it into your super busy life, because we're all busy.
And that's part of that expectation piece too. If the VA is responsible for replying to those DMs, that the expectation is within 24 hours or something like
Yep.
that. So you can channel your inner night owl and
Yes.
do it at those hours. But speaking of finding those nooks, then how do you track the time in terms of the client if you're charging them by the hour or that bundle?
Yeah. So if you're doing hourly or if you sold like a bundle of hours, so you still want to track how much they're using, I use an app called Toggle, Toggl. And because that's one thing, so many people are like, oh, I know hourly is smart to start, but like, I don't want to track my time.
Yeah.
I promise it's not as annoying as it sounds. Like, once you start doing it, it just becomes muscle memory. I use Toggle, it's called Toggle Track. I use the free version. I'm a big fan, right? There's so many free apps and things you can use out there. You don't need to get a gajillion subscriptions to
Yeah.
become a VA. And they have a desktop extension and they have an app. But it's really nice because even in the free version, you can separate it by clients. Within the client, you can separate out projects. And so if I'm going to go check in for client A, I just open the app, click client A, click email, press play and it starts tracking. I go do my thing, I go back, I press stop. Simple as that. And it has reports that you can export for your invoicing purposes. It breaks it down by the minute and by the project. So it's really detailed and you can literally just export those reports as a PDF and send them to your client. And
Right.
they can get a really clear outline of what you're working on, when, how long it's taking you. And it really does become second nature to do those, to track that time, even though it sounds not fun at first.
But like most platforms, like most apps, it just takes time to learn it, and
Mhm.
then eventually it becomes second nature. So you
Yeah.
mentioned Toggle. Thank you for that. And I know the subscriptions that a VA is going to buy into. Number one, who typically pays for those? The client or yourself? I'm thinking maybe the client when it comes to something very specialized, but otherwise the VA needs to have all the basics.
So when it comes to subscriptions, there's your side of it with the things that you need to actually run like your VA business.
Okay.
And then there's subscriptions you use for your clients. So on your side, your VA business end of things, you can literally get away with using free subscriptions for everything if you want to. You can use Gmail to create a free email account. You can use Calendly to create your booking for discovery calls. You can use their free. You can use the free version of Zoom to connect to your Calendly.
Yep.
And then there's like project management softwares. If you're someone who likes to track things digitally, I am not. I use a paper planner. I still use a 5-subject notebook to keep track of projects for clients. But if you are someone who likes to do it digitally, there's Trello, Asana, Monday.com. They all have free versions that you can start with. And then if you want to kind of up level a little bit and you're happy to invest a little bit, oh, there's also, you can make like a free website on Wix.
Yes.
Wix is a great platform, but you can up level if you want. So maybe you do want to have, the email that instead of being laurajva@gmail, I want it to be support@laurajva, right? You can choose to go buy a domain on GoDaddy for $40, spend $7 a month on Google. You could still use Calendly and Zoom and stuff for free.
Yes.
So have those options.
Yep.
And then when it comes to the actual client work, when they're using their platforms, they are going to give you access to their platforms. So let's say they have you doing newsletters in Canva, right? They have you creating those in Canva. You don't have to go buy the Canva Pro account. They're going to give you access to their Canva Pro account.
Right.
And the software that I always recommend for that is utilizing LastPass, LastPass, short for password. And it again has a desktop. You can do it on your phone as well. It essentially allows clients to share passwords with you to their software encrypted. So I can't actually see the password. I log into my account. Let's say I want to open their Canva. I go to their Canva. I click the launch button. It's going to open Canva in a new tab and auto input their username and password. And I just hit enter. And so it's a really safe way
Yes.
for them to share their logins with you. They can also retract your access at any time they want.
Yes.
But yeah, so if it's work that you're doing for clients, they're always going to be giving you access to their programs and their paid softwares.
Nice. So what's the best place for our listeners to connect with you, Laura?
Yes, you can find me on the typical social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Threads. My handle is the same at all of them. It's Hey dot Laura Nicole. And I would love if you want to DM, if you have any questions, if you want to hear deeper about any of this stuff. I'm an open freaking book. I love having conversations. I will probably send you multiple voice notes that you're like, okay, all right, girlfriend. Let's have a deeper conversation about it or have any questions. I would love for you to DM me over on Instagram and I'd be happy to chat.
Wonderful. I'll make sure I'll drop those links in the show notes. So what's your best tip to inspire others to start or grow their side hustle dream?
It's going to link back to that mindset piece of just starting. You just have to do it. It's not going to happen unless you put yourself out there. And I know that the idea of failing or getting rejected is really scary. But to me, it's scarier to still be in the same spot a year from now, looking back and thinking, man, what if I had tried?
Yeah.
Like, what if I had just tried, right? It's not going to make anything worse, but it could make your life a gajillion times better. And you just have to start. For lack of better words, I'm kind of like a little bit of a tough love coach as well. It's kind of like you have to just get over yourself.
Yeah.
Like you have to get over that fear of what if someone says no to me? Okay, so what? What if they say no?
What if they say yes?
Exactly. What if they say yes? What if it all turns in? And what if at Christmas time this year, right? Instead of trying to clear space on your credit card to buy gifts for family, you're going out and you're just paying cash and there's no stress and it's fun for the first time in years, right? Because you chose over the summer to actually get your butt out there and try. You're never going to know unless you just do it. And so we have to swallow that fear and quiet our brain when it tries to speak up. And you just have to start.
So true. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for the inspiration to start, but also for your tips and tools and insights on what it takes to be a successful VA these days. And of course, thank you for being today's Side Hustle Hero.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So what stood out for you today? Maybe it was realizing that the skills that you already use every day, whether at work or at home, could actually translate into income. That exercise that Laura shared, splitting a page into work and life responsibilities, it might be worth doing if you're just curious about what's possible. And I thought it was interesting to hear how AI really hasn't replaced VA work the way some people assume it might. There's still a real need for actual human judgment, communication, and trust, at least for the foreseeable future. And all those soft skills that don't show up in a resume. Virtual assistant work can offer a lot of flexibility, being able to work from anywhere, set your own hours, even build up your income gradually. Of course, it's not without its challenges, like managing client expectations and keeping track of your time. But if it's something that you're exploring, hopefully today gave you a clearer picture of what it might look like. And if you've got an idea for a side hustle, whether it's VA related or something entirely different, I've got a free guide that can help. It's free for now, but not forever. It's called Smart Start: From Idea to It's Live in 7 Steps, a beginner's guide to launching your side hustle with confidence. You can get it at sidehustlehero.com when you sign up. As always, clarity comes from doing, not just thinking about it. So take that next step today, whatever that is for you. Well, that's a wrap for today. If our chats are sparking your entrepreneurial spirit and providing valuable insights, consider showing your support by visiting sidehustlehero.com/support. That's where you can shoot me a virtual coffee. It's a real thing and a fun way to give the show a caffeinated thumbs up. Thank you so much. In the episode description, you'll find links to connect with Laura, as well as the full show notes, which live at our website, sidehustlehero.com. If you're enjoying what you're seeing in this podcast, it would be so appreciated if you would take a moment and add your comment, share the episode, and please subscribe. It'll let others know that there's valuable content here to help them start and grow their side hustle. Thanks for watching, and hustle on.